March 3rd, 2022, and my name is Natalie Fritz, and I'm the archivist with the Clark County Historical Society, and today I'm sitting down with Jim Patsiavos to have a conversation. So, Jim, if you want to just start just by saying hello and introducing yourself.
Good afternoon.
Briefly.
I am Jim Patsiavos, and I have enjoyed coming up here and getting involved here at the Heritage Society, and it's been an education for me, and I've really enjoyed the coming up and talking with the people that are doing the work that needs to be done in this town of Springfield. Okay, thank you.
Well, Jim, I know you come up a lot, and I know that I submit historic photos to the paper, and I know that I can always guarantee that I'm going to see you soon if I send anything into the paper that has to do with the Greek community. So some of the questions I'm going to ask you today are to do with all of the different things that you've come up to talk with us about the years, including, you know, the Greek community, betas at Wittenberg, your class at Springfield High School, your pharmacy that you ran. So those are some of the things that I'm hoping that we can talk a little bit about today, and actually have it down and recorded so that other people can learn this stuff, and it's not just us that gets to learn all the cool facts from you. Other people will get to hear it too. So that's what I'm hoping. So if I ask you something that you think we've talked about before, just pretend we didn't talk about it before, and we can talk about it again, because I'm happy to talk about those things again. So yeah, the first thing I figured we would just start kind of chronologically. You can tell me a little bit about your high school career, where you went to school and your class and everything.
I went to Schaefer Junior High School, and the young men in the neighborhood on LaGund Avenue, we were supposed to go to Roosevelt, but we did not want to go with be part of the North End group, because we wanted to be with the regular students. And actually the young people that we did not know in junior high school, we ended up getting together at Springfield High, and I graduated with a large class. Back then it was over 500 from Springfield High, and at times there was as many as 1,700 or more at Springfield High back in the late 40s. And then I graduated in 1948 from Springfield High, and I enjoyed going to Springfield High back then, but a lot of us worked after high school, and we used to walk downtown Springfield and go to work. When I worked at the old pharmacy, Schmidt Drugs, and I got involved with pharmacy at that time. And after I graduated from Springfield High, I went to Wittenberg College. It was a college at that time, and I was there for 2 years and then decided to go to pharmacy school at Ohio Northern University, and I ended up going to Ohio Northern, which I actually came back and got a degree from Wittenberg and graduated with a class of 1956. So I was actually class of 52, but since going back, I decided to get the religion courses and a few courses to get my Bachelor of Arts degree at Wittenberg. So anyway.
So what year did you graduate from Ohio Northern with your
1953.
1953. Can you tell me a little bit about your time, your fraternity life when you were at Wittenberg? What you're okay with us recording? That's fine.
Actually, I did not want to get involved with a fraternity at Wittenberg. There was one fraternity that rushed me, and when I first went to Wittenberg, and I could not wait till I got out of the fraternity house. I was there. They had me for an hour or two, and I just couldn't. I didn't want anything to do with them. And when I got out of the house, their fraternity house, I'm not going to say which one it was, but I said, I don't want anything to do with fraternity life. And then it was my brother who followed me the following year. He was a year behind me at Wittenberg. Talked my buddy and I to go join the Beta Theta Pi fraternity. And it wasn't just a few weeks ago at the Beta house that I brought this up about what we did not feel comfortable being part of fraternities back then. And over the years, it became, I changed my ways about fraternity life, and I never forgot, and believe it or not, I became quite active with the fraternity. I went to the meetings, initiations, and enjoyed my life and living in town. I was just a town boy, but my brother and I enjoyed the camaraderie of the young men that we got to know, who we have stayed close over the years. And to me, it still believes, I still get involved with my fraternity at Wittenberg no matter what. So I've enjoyed it, and so has my brother also. In fact, I might mention we both came back from Ohio Northern. The last week of February was spring break at Ohio Northern, and the fraternity brothers had asked my brother and I to come back at that time and help with Hell Week. If I want to, now they call it Initiation Week or Help Week, but back then it was Hell Week, yes. And we never forgot Hell Week back then. No. Yes.
So, what neighborhood did you grow up at in town?
I grew up, when I was born, we was in a double house on South Limestone Street. And the family that was very close to my mom and dad occupied the other side. And the gentleman that was born also in that house and I were born 10 days apart, and we became like brothers all through the years. It was a Greek family, like my mom and dad were back then.
What was his name? Friend's name?
George Giannopoulos.
Oh, okay.
George Giannopoulos. I can spell that for you if you want.
Yeah.
Giannopoulos. Giannopoulos.
You know, we used to have people in Catholic Central with that name, but they pronounce it Giannakopoulos.
That was the Giannakopoulos. They got confused between the two.
Is it two different families?
What?
It is two different families then?
Yes, oh yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that. I thought that it was the same.
The
family.
Giannakopoulos family was my godparents.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that they were the same family.
No, they're not.
So where did you go to elementary school?
What?
Where was your elementary school on the south end?
We had moved to Lagunda Avenue, and Washington Grade School on Lagunda was the school that my brother and another young man from the neighborhood, Gus Curiazes, whose father was partners at the American Restaurant with George Giannakopoulos, my godfather. Anyway, but at that time, all three of us, my brother and Gus, did not speak English. And it was always Greek in the home. And in the first grade, my brother and I, and Gus had a teacher also. He was a year behind us. And he couldn't speak English either. And the teacher, Ruth Bischoff, failed Gus. And my teacher, who was Augusta Garlow, was so nice, was good to us that she just wrote a note back home that all I did was put my head down on the desk and sleep.
Was that true?
And nap, yes.
What?
Yes. And that, it was that way back then and at that time, we were bullied in the recess of the school because of the language barrier. And I used to get in fights. And one time, my teacher took me up to the principal, Miss Eisenmanger, who was German and a very strong-willed person. And Miss Bryant, Marie Bryant, said, "It's going to hurt me more to paddle you than it's going to hurt me more than you." So I said, "Why bother? Why bother paddling me?" She handed the paddle to Miss Eisenmanger, and it was Miss Eisenmanger that gave me the paddling, that gave me the cracks. Anyway.
So they didn't teach you English? There was no, was there an attempt
We
made for them to teach
it
you?
gradually.
You just learned
Yes.
and picked it up, but they never sat down to try and help you learn English
No.
better. They just
Not at all.
They just. So was that how? I'm trying to get a good. So this would have been the 30s.
It was.
30s.
I was 35. I was 35, 30. It was 1935 that we moved to Lagunda Avenue. And my dad had just bought a car, a 36 Grand-Page here in Springfield. And it was mainly growing up on Lagunda Avenue back then in a German-Irish neighborhood back then. And we used to fight with the kids that went to St. Bernard's. And we did not like each other, which later years we became very close, believe it or not. And I still got involved with an it was an Irish group at a bar here in Springfield. There was 15, 16 German-Irish that I never forgot, and I was the only non-Catholic, non-Irish person that was invited. It was
You were
yeah,
the only one invited.
I was the only one, and I can't believe that it was all this group of young men that I had grown up with and had become very close with.
So had the relationship changed by the time you got to middle school? Before you got to, because you said there was some bullying when you were younger. When did that kind of change?
It changed actually in the 40s, early 40s, during the war. The Second World War had a lot to do because we fought and built trenches in my dad's garden behind the house and bombarded the boys from the Catholic St. Bernard's. And I, believe it or not, we actually got into fist fights back then. It was a bad situation that growing up at that time. Yes.
But then it improved during the war years?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. One of them I never forgot that I played basketball with, his dad worked on the railroad. Father John Burns ended up going to seminary and became a Catholic priest. And we became so close that when he came back from seminary, we would go to Wittenberg and we played tennis on the courts at Wittenberg. And I became so close to him, and Father John ended up becoming priest at Sacred Heart in New Carlisle.
What was his last name again?
Burns. And his brother, Bob Burns,
Oh,
was a pilot in the Second World War
yeah. Friend of my father.
that came back, and but actually to become close friends with all this German-Irish group, John Hanahan,
Yeah.
God love him, and it's a wonder we never got into a fight with each other, but it's always great memories because growing up in that neighborhood with that group of young men back then. Even though we didn't like each other, we ended up becoming close. Yes.
Grew up.
Yeah.
Well, I want to back up to a couple things. So, you grew up in a German-Irish neighborhood by St. Bernard's. Did you go to the Greek Orthodox Church on
Yes.
East High?
I was involved when they bought the building. My father was on the committee that bought the building, the Kroll building, which was owned at the time by a lawyer. His last name was Martin, and his nephew was Oscar Martin, who was on the lawyer here in Springfield, and Dr. Morris Martin. And I was involved when they first changed the building. They didn't, they took the building over, and it was a beautiful area. It had botanical gardens, had a fish gardens in the back corner, in the behind the building. There was a carriage house where they used to have horses at one time, buggies with the horse-drawn buggies. And then when they put the church up on the third floor, that's the first time they got a priest that came, and he was our first priest here, Father Pappas. And at one time they had a fire in the third floor. The candles burnt, started a fire, because they always had candles burning. And they were able to save the, get the fire out, and they eventually moved the church downstairs, and they built the addition about 1944-45 behind the church proper, main part. Yeah.
Did you went there for Greek school? You had mentioned to me before. Can you tell me a little bit more about Greek school?
Greek
there?
school?
Yeah.
Oh, you want to know about Greek school?
I do.
There was 4 of us, 4 men from Springfield High, 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoon, we walked from Springfield High to the Greek church on 1127 East High Street, and it was Greek school from 4 to 6, and we walked all the way from Springfield High to the Greek church, and they used to at one time, before they had the church, they had Greek school. Back when I was 5 years old, I was a student in a Greek school downtown. The first Greek school that I went to was in the old YMCA building around the corner from the First National Bank building, the old YMCA. If you're familiar with that was Greek school. And actually, then we ended up, they rented on right around the corner on Limestone and High Street. It was the upstairs building with a room over the Delinanos Furrier. And there was another lady from Greece who had come and taught Greek to us back then. And we had as many as, there's a picture in the church of about over 20 young people back then who were older than I was that went to Greek school at that time. The parents paid for a Greek school teacher.
Do you feel like a star today, Jim?
What?
Do you feel like a star? A star? Do you feel like a star today?
A star?
Yeah, that's good.
Because we're asking all these questions. And
No,
you're on
you're
camera.
kidding me. Oh, well. I was involved back then. I became involved with the church choir, and then it was my sister and the girls I never forgot that were her classmates at Springfield High became involved with a choir. And it was a beautiful choir, and I'm sorry to say that in the last 4 or 5 years, they've not had the choir. And I never forgot my brother and I sang in the Springfield High Choir back years ago. And Miss Ella Gaver, I don't know if you've ever heard of.
I've heard of her.
Okay. Miss Ella Gaver was director of the choir at Springfield High at the time. And her brother was Carol Gaver, who was the optometrist in the First National Bank building, who became very close with my dad, my father. Anyway.
Well, now that we're on your dad,
What?
I think we might, if you don't mind, the cup, if you just push it over a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it picks up the sound a
Oh,
little bit.
well, they think I'm drinking something else.
So can you talk a little bit more about your dad? I know you've got lots of stories about your dad, maybe starting from when he first came to Springfield.
My dad came from Greece with his 2 brothers and 2 cousins, and a lady cousin that ended up in Columbus. And I have a picture of that, and they came by ship from Greece, and they ended up actually in New York City to begin with. And then since my aunt, I call her, from Columbus, she married and ended up in Columbus. And my uncles and my dad and the 2 cousins worked in Springfield in the shoe business, shoe shops. And that's what they did in the old country, in Greece, before they came. All 4 of them were shoe repairmen back then, and they became so close. My dad was very close. They were first cousins with my dad. And it was my Uncle Louis, and Uncle Nick were the 2 uncles that were in Springfield at the time. And well, my dad was, when he was 12 years old, he was a member of the YMCA, and he took up wrestling, and actually he ended up going with his uncles and with his cousins and brothers. They opened some shoe shops in Columbus, and my dad, as a young man, was on the wrestling team in Columbus. And at 18 years old, he became an AAU wrestling champion and wrestled preliminaries to the big arena, Hafts, H-A-F-T, apostrophe S, Hafts Arena, who was his wrestling coach, owned the arena that he did the preliminaries to the big wrestling matches.
Was that in Columbus or here in town?
In Columbus. And he said he'd wrestled one time the lightweight champion, the former lightweight champion of the world, and he had him beat till he got he got cocky, and he said the old man took me. So he said he learned a lesson from a former lightweight champion of the world. And my dad, at that time, when he came back to Springfield, he wanted to start a wrestling class at Springfield High, and they wouldn't talk to him. And he started his own class after work, working all day. He had a class at the YMCA in wrestling.
And what year was that?
That had to be 1950, 48, 49.
So when you were in high school?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So did your dad wrestled in town?
He did, yes. He wrestled. He wrestled at Memorial Hall when I was just a baby, young, barely walking. He wrestled 3 times in one night to win the county champ. And he didn't tell me about this. It was one of the pharmacists at the pharmacy at the Schmidt Drugs that told me that he was there to witness the wrestling back then.
So he knew.
You know.
Did your dad have a wrestling nickname or anything?
Yes, ma'am. The Masked Marvel. I guess you would ask me that.
So you never told us your dad's name.
What?
What was your dad's name?
Chris.
With a K or a C?
Christ. Christ. But
They didn't call him Christ, did they?
no.
Good.
I-
So when did he start the shoe? When did he build and, yeah, can you tell us a little bit
He
more about?
when he left, it was in 1952. He decided to leave the. He was selling the shoe shop in the First National Bank building, and at the time he was having a shoe built on the corner of Limestone and College Avenue, and he ended up building a shoe there. And
Did he come up with the idea to build it
Yes.
as a shoe?
yes, Dad was getting the magazines from the shoe companies, the shoe magazine, monthly magazine, and there was a picture in there that he liked. It was a shoe in the shape of a shoe shop in the shape of a shoe. So he got the builder, it was McKinsey Lumber, and the architect to build the shoe on that corner of College and Lime.
Who was the architect?
What?
Who was the architect?
Ted Knisley,
Ted Knisley.
yes, who was involved with the McKinsey Lumber Company at the time. And his son, Phil, and I became very close. And Phil he was involved with building the Credit Life building. Phil Knisley. It was the construction company on East High Street. Oh, I'm trying to think of his name. Oh. Phil was his leading, they built in North Carolina, High Point, you name it, Charleston, West Virginia. They built buildings back then. And I'm trying to remember the gentleman that had that construction company. But
Well, that was up by the bowling alley?
yeah,
Up in there,
no,
behind Central?
no, it was right near across from the funeral home.
Okay.
Richard's funeral home? Which funeral home?
Was
Or
Jackson
Brooklyn?
Lytle back then.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that far up.
So further down East High.
Just across the street,
Okay.
right? There's a Dairy Queen right there
Yeah,
close by.
yeah.
Oh, I'm trying to think of his name. He lived to be in his 90s, and gosh. And then one time Phil asked me, I was involved with the church work in the Credit Life building, and he wanted to go through the building, and he said, I'll meet you at the entrance. And I took him up on the top floor, and and let him, he went from the top floor clear to the basement and wanted to see what the building was like after was involved with building the Credit Life building.
How long did your dad have the shoe?
What?
How long did your dad run the shoe? In the shoe?
It was, he was 90 years old at the time when he gave up the shoe. He worked till, and then he enjoyed working because he had some gentlemen, people, men that would come, and he would talk to them at any time. They would talk for, whenever I stopped by, they were always in there talking. They enjoyed talking.
You've learned that well, haven't you?
Oh my.
So what year was your dad born?
Here in 1904.
So mid-90s. Did someone else take over this?
What?
Did someone else take over his shoe shop, or did he sell the building?
Yeah, do you mean the shoe?
Yeah.
No. It stayed empty, and the termites were getting to it. And I had a gentleman, John Conroy, that kept on my back when we used to party across the street. And he said, when are you going to do with Dad's shoe? And I said, when I get good and ready. And he was on my back. And finally, I had it torn down. And he mentioned the shoe again. And I took him to the window and I said, there it is. And he got off my back finally.
So when did you have it torn down?
It was in I'm trying to think, was it in the 70s?
Wait, I thought you said your dad had it until, when did your dad?
In 53.
Oh.
He built it in 53, and he was there, oh my gosh, 25 years. He was there for quite a while. I'm trying to think what year it was that we tore it down. I'm trying to think if I was involved. I was involved with the pharmacy at that time. Yes.
I thought you said that your dad had it until he was 90.
He was 90 years old.
And so what year was your dad 90?
1994.
Was it 94? So wait.
He passed away in 94.
He passed
The
away
year
in 94.
yes.
Okay. So you had it torn down sometime after that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
He and my mother went back to Greece in the fall of the summer of 94. And when he came back, it was in November that he passed on. Yeah, he had a black gentleman that ran the shoe shop just for a short period of time.
Do you know who that was?
Huh?
Do you remember who that was?
Yes.
What was his name?
Harold Strodes.
Harold Strodes.
Yeah.
So I know that the electric pizza was in the building attached to
Yes.
the shoe. Was that building still standing, or were they all torn
The
down?
building was still standing, and it was a carryout before it became the electric pizza. It was Doc Crable's parents that he put in there, and I used to go visit them, and it was a carryout. Beer, wine, they didn't have pizza yet at that time, till the two young men took over and made it the electric pizza.
And then the Williamsons owned it.
Yes,
right? And,
was one of the boys that was a partner.
and then they owned the Hickory later, right?
Yes, he would, but the other partner did not go with him to the Hickory. Mr. Williams, he went by himself. He bought it from a couple gentlemen, men that were close to my dad. They were involved with my dad, being that close in the neighborhood.
Who was that?
I forget them. I forget who it was. Gosh.
We stumped him.
Okay, well, I wanted to talk a little bit more about some of the Greek-owned businesses and restaurants that were in town, in downtown Springfield.
My dad had told me at one time there was 18 Greek restaurants in Springfield.
What time was that?
What time that
Yeah,
was?
when-
That was back 30s, in the 30s, because they were still going, even after the war years, they were still going. There's a number of them that and Gus Curiasis was one of them, whose dad was partners in the American restaurant, that he remembered he may have got to 18, because we went over together on the phone, and he knew all those restaurants that we talked about. Yes.
Can you tell me some of them?
The Moulin Rouge,
I don't know, but yeah.
I remember the man that owned it, because I used to go over, and he specialized in spaghetti, Nick Capendice. And it was right around the corner from the United Cigar Store. And on the fountain side was a Unique Lunch. That was Nick Giannopoulos. That was George's uncle, because George had worked there as a young boy, serving in that restaurant chili and hot dogs. And there was a number of chili and hot dogs back then in the Greek restaurants back then. Yeah. Steve's Red Hots was across the street on Limestone, around the corner from Main Street. Do you remember the Ideal Jewelry Store? Mm-hmm. Okay? It was next to the Ideal Jewelry Store. There's an alley that ran between McCrory's department store, and it ran into Limestone Street there. There was, back then, and just like there was a break, a street down between the Wrens and the bank, Springfield Federal. And those streets used to go and split the downtown area.
Yeah, yeah.
You remember?
I don't remember, but I've been told.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
So, what about the Ohio restaurant?
Oh yeah.
Was that?
That was on Fountain Avenue, right up from the corner of North Street and Fountain. It was right up, was on the west side of the street, the Ohio restaurant. It was owned by Mr. Theodore, whose son and I became close, who was a policeman on the police department back then.
What was his last name? Do you remember?
I forget his name. No, Vern Theopolis.
Vern Theopolis.
Vern Theopolis.
Okay.
Yes,
And you call him Theo.
and his dad shortened their name and went by Theodore.
Yeah, that's great.
But Vern kept Theopolis, and Vern went to Springfield High, and he played football at Springfield High. And then we used to get together and partied over the years. Yeah.
Where did you go?
You want to know?
I do, yeah.
We spent about 20 years in the Eli Cafe.
Oh, gee. You're the Elite.
Oh my
And
gosh.
And where was the Eli?
What?
Where was the Eli located?
On the corner of Main Street and Wittenberg Avenue. It was torn down years ago to be part of the parking lot for the elderly United Senior Services.
So, who owned the Eli?
Bill Poulos. Poulos. William.
What, do you know Gus Lapolis? Have you heard of him?
Gus Lapoulos,
Wasn't he a policeman?
he was a policeman.
That's all right.
He picked me up one time.
Did he put you back down?
Yes, he picked me up for speeding.
Uh-huh.
And I said, Gus, I know you. He said, I'm still going to give you a ticket. He gave me a ticket. Oh, yeah, Gus
Just
Lapoulos.
that way.
Oh, my gosh.
How about, the Mantis family?
The what?
The Mantis family, they had a restaurant?
It was the Crystal Restaurant, right on the corner of the alley that separates where the Sugar Bowl was at on the corner of the alley, and right next to it was the Crystal Restaurant. And then there was a meat company that was right on the hill as you go up towards Woolworths. Yeah,
So all on Limestone, right?
on
Limestone?
High Street.
Oh, on High Street.
The Crystal Restaurant, yeah. You ever heard of the Bookwalter Hotel?
I have, yeah.
Okay,
Where was it located?
that's where where they built the Woolworths at,
Yeah, that
the
same corner,
Bookwalter.
which is the block that the city building is on now.
Yes.
That corner.
Oh my gosh.
What was the American restaurant's cuisine? Did they have a specialty, American restaurant?
It was just a well-known restaurant. It was right next to the Big Four Railroad Station, and it was open night and day.
My parents.
And they used to treat the people off of that train and give them free meals. Yes. People that didn't have money back then during the Depression years and after the Depression. Because at that time, I remember when they used to come and bake meals door to door. You knew about that, didn't you? Oh, yes. My mother used to give them meals back then. Oh, gosh. Things were kind of tough back,
Good people, though.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the pharmacies here in town. The first one you worked at, you said was Schmidt's.
Schmidt Drugs.
Is that your first exposure to working in pharmacies?
Yes,
with them?
it was.
Can you tell us a little bit about the ones that you worked at after that and the ones you later ran?
After I finished pharmacy school, there was not a position open at Schmidt Drugs. So Mr. James Marshall was knocked on our home when we were living on North Lowry and wanted to know if I could be available to help him on his pharmacy on Center Street, South Center Street. And I had not taken the state board yet, and I told him that I need to take the state board before I practice. And he said, "Don't worry, you can pass the state board. I need help now." And I went and helped him as my first position from pharmacy school. Yes.
They didn't catch you or anything, then, huh?
What?
They didn't catch you for not having your
No.
credentials in order?
No,
So- When did you open your own store? How long did
1963.
And what was that store?
The name of that store, that was called Gilbert's Pharmacy.
And where was it?
What?
Where was it? What part of town? What road?
Gilbert Kirschenbaum. He was Jewish, and he had a strong Jewish clientele.
Yeah.
Who actually a lot of those Jewish people stayed with me. They were good customers, and I enjoyed them very much.
Good. Where was it located?
Right around the corner from McCride Avenue on North Murray. The building's still there.
Did you ever change the name from Gilbert's?
Yes. I changed it when the pharmacist that I was close to from Schmidt Drugs lived across the street around the corner, and he said, you need to change the name of the pharmacy. And I said, okay, tell me. And he said, change it to Northern Heights. Northern Heights Pharmacy.
Which, that's the neighborhood name there, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Gosh,
How long was the pharmacy open?
it was open till 1996. My buddy that I was at Wittenberg, was my beta talked with, he didn't care for fraternities either, but anyway, he had Northridge Pharmacy, and Albert Powell and he closed 6 months before and kept calling me to close the pharmacy. And I said, you mind your own business up in Northridge and don't worry about me. So it was 1996, March 15th, that I closed the pharmacy.
Did you take work anywhere else after that, or did you retire then?
After I quit, after I retired, I did some pharmacy work, and it ended up, I went to Mercy Hospital and worked at Mercy for about 6 years. And I enjoyed hospital work very much.
Good.
And in fact, my son is a hospital pharmacist today, so, Chris.
How many children do you have?
Huh?
How many children do you have?
I have two sons and one daughter.
Do they live in town?
What?
Do they live in town?
No. My son, Jamie, lives in Columbus. He's with the Board of Education, does work with them. And my daughter, Dina, lives in Pennsylvania, who happens to be here at the present time. She came last night.
Good.
Yes.
For a visit?
She's got a degree in education from Ohio Northern University.
And you said, is Chris in town?
Yes.
Yeah.
Chris is with Regional.
Regional? I'm not sure what.
Springfield Regional?
Oh, the
Springfield Regional.
Gotcha.
It was great back then when they built Mercy. I used to go over and watch them put the floors in, and since we lived right close by, I enjoyed going over and watching them, watching the building of Mercy Hospital back then.
You like to watch other people work, didn't you?
Yeah, well,
Did you watch them tear it down when it came down a few
I
years
did
ago?
not like,
Yeah.
no, I felt bad because one of the pharmacists that I worked with at Mercy, we had talked about the combination of the two hospitals. And I said, if they want to build one hospital in Springfield, they ought to build it right here in the best location we felt in Springfield.
Which was?
Right there where Mercy was, yes. But then it was a lot of things were going on with the politics in Springfield to combine the two hospitals. And they ended up buying an area which was now Springfield Regional.
Big
Yep.
area too.
What?
A big area too.
Yes, yes. At one time, it wasn't anything compared to up there. And at one time, Wittenberg was going to buy the property, but Wittenberg had some problems, financial problems, and all they had to do was pay for the tearing down of Mercy, and they could have taken the property, but they didn't have the money at that time.
That's a shame.
You knew that, didn't you?
I didn't.
You didn't. They were $7 million in debt because my fraternity brothers, some of my beta brothers were on the board. They tried to blame the president, and they did. And to me, you don't blame the president. You got a board of trustees that should have made the decisions as far as yes, because I never, when they told me, try to blame the president, I said, you don't blame the president. You got a board of trustees. And some of them were betas on there too, but, well.
Didn't listen to you, did they?
What?
They didn't listen to you, did they?
Well, they don't listen to me. I don't know anything. But in fact, to be still involved with fraternity is,
That's pretty cool.
yeah.
You still get together with your people you graduated with at the roundups, don't you? The Wildcat roundups?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I enjoy going to the Wildcat roundups. And one of my beta fraternity brothers that I put through Hell Week, he and I became very close. And he became instrumental in starting the Wildcat roundups, the roundups from Springfield High.
Who was that?
I forgot his name. James Ingledew. No, and Jim, not only we were good, we became very close with the fraternity, but it was always great to get involved at the Masonic home, where he started three times a year. We would have the get-togethers in the Central Center at the Masonic, where the building is, where they all congregate. And he used to have 75 to 80 in attendance, that many, believe it or not. And now we're down to about 50.
What did you do for these roundups? You just get together and?
Oh yeah, we would get together, and there was tables set up, and they had pizza, and yeah. And I don't remember if we had beer or not, but I don't know. I don't remember beer. We had soda pop, yeah.
There you go.
So we enjoyed quarterly to meet at the Masonic Center, visiting center, and it was great having those Wildcat roundups. In fact, it's not limited. It wasn't limited only to Springfield High. We have Catholic Central coming. Yes.
When's the next one?
What?
When is the next roundup?
April 25th,
Is it,
28th, 25th.
Is it still at the Masonic home?
No,
or-
it's at Grace Lutheran Church.
Oh.
That's where,
is that the new one over on is that a new church?
On St. Paris Pike.
on St. Paris Road. Yeah.
And do
And-
women come to these as well? Do women come as well, or just the men?
Yeah, it's any
It's
graduates of
Hey,
any
oh
year.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's, it's great to see even from Catholic Central or Olive Branch. I would like to see even from the county schools come. It doesn't make, you don't have to be Springfield High to belong or get involved. And that's why I usually try to get people that I know to come to it. Especially one of them that went to Central, Randy Yance, who I'm close to, and we share a beer together, Randy, and I'm going to try to get, he's on my mind to get him to come to the,
April meeting.
yeah. And now I feel bad because we've always had St. Patrick's Day and had some great times. And I used to close the drugstore at 6 o'clock, put a sign on the door, going to St. Patrick's Day dinner. And it's too bad that with all this going on with the pandemic that I just feel there's going to be St. Patrick's Day parties no matter what.
There will be. Where did you used to go to your St. Patrick's Day dinners?
We used to go back, at one time, it was Yanisse's on West Main Street. Then the Yanisse's bought the building across where the big restaurant was, the
On the hill.
yeah, with the big, it was a big open area, and they used to have. You talk about crowds. They used to have overfilled crowds going in the side rooms. There were some 2 or 3 rooms aside, and used to be packed. They used to pack that. And no, I still have one of the programs from St. Patrick's Day. Yeah. In fact, my son ended up being president one year, Chris. Well,
President of,
the Irish Fellowship.
oh,
I was on the board.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't, there's not a requirement to be Irish to be part of the Irish
No.
Fellowship then,
No.
apparently. Huh.
You talk about good times.